Well, hello there, everybody. Man, and welcome back from that big commercial break. I hope you were able to stretch your legs, get the cold or warm beverage of your choice, and you are settled in. Got yourself strapped in, seats in the upright position, and the tray tables are up and locked in, and we are good to go for another segment here on Legal Talks. I got some good information for you. Now, this is an old classic, right? This is a thing that has been asked of me, I mean, probably 100 times, right? And that's just in the past year. So this always comes up, right? Now, we all have heard commercials on the TV and on the radio, on cable, whatever. Hey, do you owe money to the IRS? How about paying pennies on the dollar? We can settle you for pennies on the dollar. You owe 100,000, you're going to pay 2,000. Now that actually, I'm here to tell you that does exist. Okay, and I myself have been able to get some really good good results. I mean, probably one of the bigger ones that I can remember in the past couple of years, we settled about $1.2 million worth of taxes for like I don't know, like $20,000 or something. So yeah, pennies on the dollar, that can work, right? That can be a thing. But here's the thing, right? When you talk about pennies on the dollar, you're usually talking about what the IRS calls an offer in compromise. All right. So an OIC, we call it in the business, right? So offer in compromise, and that is actually, I wrote this down. That is a section 7122, actually, of the Internal Revenue Code, 7122. That is the section of the law, because remember, IRS doesn't get to just do whatever they want. They don't just do what they feel like. IRS folks cannot just wake up today and say, "Oh, I think old Bob seems like a good guy. I think I'll write his taxes down a little bit because he's, struggling, whatever. I think I'll do that." And there's nothing behind it, right? So there's got to be whatever the IRS or really any government office, any government official, or any government agency wants to do, there's got to be what we call legal authority, right? So legal authority is some section of the law. Congress passed it, the president signed it, and now it's in law. And this federal agency can do X, Y, and Z thing because it's in the law, right? So offer and compromise is in the law and has been for, I don't even know how long, but a long time. It's not a brand new thing, despite what the radio commercials would like to tell you, right? So, so offer and compromise means that you are going to pay less than you actually owe. So let's say you get out your big calculator and you crunch some numbers and you do your taxes and you figure out, or your tax guy figures out, or the case may be, right? So you figure out, well, I owe the IRS, $100,000. All right. May you be so lucky, because if you owe 100,000, that means you made a lot more than 100,000. So good for you, right? So let's say you get your big calculator out and you figure out, well, I owe the IRS $100,000. Oh my God, guess what? My pet goat died. I had unexpected funeral expenses, whatever happened. Oh my God, I don't have money. I can't pay the $100,000, right? Or as the case may be, as we'll see, right? For XYZ reason, whatever it may be, I want to settle with the IRS. Now, people sometimes think, and this is not the case, right? They think they're down at Uncle Sammy's used car lot, and they look at a real cream puff of a car. Watch how they spit in their hand and say, "Okay, a deal for you. I'll give you X amount," right? But that's not the way that works. IRS can make a deal with you. And so we already talked about the section of the law that allows IRS to compromise or to make a settlement with you, right? There's basically three kinds of settlements, okay? There is doubt as to liability. And basically, I'm not going to get real technical. Doubt as to liability means, yeah, IRS, you say I owe that amount of money. I'm not so sure. I don't think that's correct. I think, instead of 100,000 that you say I owe, I think I really owe 20,000. So here I hereby offer you 20,000, right? So you're offering the IRS, you're offering to pay them the amount that you think is really due, not what they have been claiming is due. All right. So that is doubt as to liability, and that is one way to make an offer to the IRS. And if you can convince them, if you can show that that's actually, your numbers are accurate, then yeah, they'll go ahead and make that deal and say, okay, 100,000, our bad, we'll take 20, and there you go, right? That's one way you can go about it. The other way to go about it is what is called doubt as to collectability. Now, whereas doubt as to liability means, hey, I'm claiming I don't really owe that money that you say I owed, and therefore I offer you less. Doubt as to collectability is, yeah, I owe the money, or most likely I owe the money. But guess what? I'm broke. I can't afford to pay you, right? So it's in lieu of some kind of a, maybe, the other way you might have gone with that is bankruptcy, right? So to think of this as like a miniature bankruptcy, but only with the IRS, right? So I owe the IRS 100,000. I'm not disagreeing that I owe the money. I just can't afford to pay because, because I'm broke. Well, what can you, then it comes RCP, they calculate reasonable collection potential. What can you afford to pay? So you're going to have to give the IRS a bunch of information, bank statements, pay stubs, et cetera, mortgage of your house, mortgage statement, all this other good stuff, right? It's a big, thick list of stuff they're going to want. Long story short, they want you to demonstrate that you can't really afford to pay. And if you can show that, if you can demonstrate that you cannot afford to pay, I owe 100,000, all I can afford to pay is 3,000, then they will go ahead and take that 3,000. So that pennies on the dollar thing that does exist. Now, there's one more kind or type of offer and compromise that I could mention, right? So we talked about doubt as to liability. I don't really owe the money. We talked about doubt as to collectability. Yes, I owe the money, but I can't afford to pay. Now here's the last one, and it's kind of weird. It's not very often used, effective tax administration. And so effective tax administration is, yeah, I most likely, almost certainly owe the money. Yes, I owe it. And yeah, I could probably pay it. Maybe if I sold my home and lived in the street, I'd be homeless. So there you go. Maybe I could afford potentially to pay it, but it's really not fair. It's not going to look good, publicity wise. It's not going to look good for the IRS to be, charging me this money. So that is what we call effective tax administration. And real quickly, one way that I used effective tax administration was there was a company, the owner was very elderly, there were some penalties. She passed away for cancer. I used an effective tax administration argument and got the IRS to abate or wipe out a bunch of penalties based on the argument that, look, the lady that screwed up and didn't do this right in the first place is already dead, and the company can't afford to pay, a couple of $1 million in penalties. They're going to go out of business. And so all these people are going to lose their jobs. And by the way, it was a home health company. So all the people that are patients that count on that company are now going to lose their health care because, you IRS shut them down by charging these gigantic penalties, right? So they backed off and did not charge the penalty, they abated it. So that is what we would call an effective tax administration, argument. Yes, I owe the money. Probably I can afford to pay, but guess what? It's going to bankrupt me. It's going to put me homeless, whatever. And so they will just, write it off based on that it's not equitable or it's not fair for you to be paying that much of a penalty, fee, tax, whatever it may be. All right. So that's the three kind of offers and compromise. And there's very strict guidelines and you've got to qualify for those in order for the IRS to be able to accept them and write off some of your tax debt. So yes, that does exist, but there's a whole lot of caveat behind that, right? So thanks for the question. It's a classic question. I get it all the time. And thank you everybody out in the audience for being with us. We are going to go to one more quick commercial break, and then we will be back with more legal talk. So please, please stay with us. Don't go anywhere. We got more good stuff to come.